Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on this spontaneous video. Today I'm going to talk about a book by Franz Kafka, widely regarded as one of the major literary figures of the 20th century. Kafka is known to combine surrealism, real absurdity, and bizarre plot points to create stories that somehow just seem plausible, maybe just due to his superb writing, but also we obviously know that it's not plausible. That will obviously be clear after a while. The book I'm going to talk about is called The Metamorphosis. Now, in English, metamorphosis is the process from which a caterpillar or any other insect from its pupa form transforms into a fully formed insect. Like a caterpillar turns into a complete butterfly. That's the whole process is called the metamorphosis. Now, the premise of this book is really bizarre. It's about a man who turns into a human-sized cockroach. Yes, a man in his middle ages turns into a human-sized cockroach. Without spoiling too much of it, I'm going to present some thoughts. Now, if you don't want any spoiler, you may like skip ahead to maybe, I don't know, a little while later. The main character is Gregor Samsa, a salesman stuck at a dead-end traveling salesman routine, who is also the sole breadwinner for his entire family. One day he wakes up and finds that he has turned into a cockroach. There's no explanation given about his ailment, and like it isn't even explored that much as well. But as soon as he wakes up, he panics and he realizes that he is slowly losing his voice as well. He cannot reach for the door, he cannot wake up, he cannot open the door, and like it's like extremely bizarre situation. I mean, like how can anything like that happen? I mean, that was my initial reaction while reading this. He has little to no control over his body, and of course he loses his voice, so he cannot communicate and cannot do anything more than what a normal cockroach can. Now, obviously, you know we can guess that his family is like really terrified and disgusted at this change. His mother's maternal instincts clash with her terror at the insect, also maybe the disgust. Well, his sister initially helps him and tries cleaning his room several times, and she was the one who like feeds him for a few days, but later on something else happens. Let's go to his father now. Now, his father is actually modeled after Franz Kafka's own father, uh, who was allegedly abusing Franz Kafka multiple times in his childhood and was also known as quite an oppressive figure. Now, his father is extremely disgusted at this change, but it's also worth noting that uh, due to Gregor's newfound condition, that is being turned into a cockroach, he can no longer work, and that forces his father to pull himself out of retirement and get a job in a certain bank. Now, let's keep in mind that it is mentioned that by Gregor himself that his father and him they didn't have much of a relationship, and there is a lot of resentment towards Gregor that is shown by his father throughout this novel, and multiple times his father also attacks his son. And as time passes, Gregor becomes less and less important to the family, and all the attention he was getting. I mean, people were like they were afraid to go into his room and look at him, but he was getting a lot of attention from his family members. But sooner rather than later, the attention starts finally like waning out. People don't want to look at him because they are disgusted, and they have to make several arrangements for him to live, because as a cockroach he cannot eat like normal food like other human beings. He is forced to eat like rotten foodstuffs, and we can obviously guess the stench that would be produced by such eating habits. And it's also mentioned that his importance in the family decreases as well, because in the beginning of the novel, when he was a salesman, at that time he was the sole breadwinner, and he was also planning for his younger sister's future as well. But now his younger sister is forced to take a job as well as take care of her older brother who somehow managed to turn himself into a cockroach. Now, what happens is that slowly the kind of acceptance that Gregor was getting, not exactly acceptance, but the fact that Gregor was, although a cockroach, still a member of the family. Well, that was being acknowledged in the beginning, but but the family members slowly stop acknowledging that, and slowly he feels that he is becoming a burden to them. Due to the financial conditions, they are forced to uh, rent some parts of their room as well, and obviously the guy, the one who turned into a cockroach, Gregor, is not allowed to roam around the house because everyone is terrified and disgusted at him. Now, what happens is that his sister, who initially showed initiative in feeding him and trying to accommodate his survival, slowly starts resenting him, and due to that resentment, she even stops cleaning his room if she saw him in an open space. Let's keep in mind that Gregor, as a cockroach, like to stay in the dark between, not between, under the bed, and his family members didn't like to see him that much as well. And if his sister and his sister starts developing a growing resentment, and one day Gregor hears that his sister said something along the lines of they should get rid of him. Like, he hears his own sister talk about the thought of getting rid of him, because that would obviously release the family from all kinds of troubles, and also most importantly the family would be allowed to sell their house and move to a more affordable place somewhere else, because with the cockroach they cannot. So what he does is, so he is already quite injured due to his father's beating, and after hearing his sister talk about him like that way, like, he slowly starts starving himself, and then he slowly dies. So that's what happens in the novel. Now let's go towards some of the symbolism and other type of themes present in the book. Some people believe that, I mean, when I say people, I mean credible literature people. I mean very credible literature people. They like to compare Gregor, the cockroach guy, to a person who is suffering from psychological illness or even terminal diseases. In the sense that initially in the beginning of the ailment, people are quite sympathetic to the person, and I mean to the to Gregor. The family members are quite sympathetic, and like they look at him with pity, but sooner rather than later the pity slowly turns into a kind of contempt. I wouldn't say hate, but I think contempt would be a better word to use in this context. Like, they don't actively hate the person, but they don't wish that person was there, that kind of thing. I mean, they wouldn't actively go out of the way to eliminate them, or actively wish for their for them to disappear, but I would also feel that, yeah, it would be kind of convenient if they wouldn't be there as well. And keeping in mind that this book was written like around more than 100 years ago, so at that time the acceptance for such mental diseases and other terminal diseases in the society was very low, and like compared to our time, that there was no tolerance for many of the things. So it might have been like Kafka's motive to kind of compare Gregor to a person suffering from such diseases. But that's one interpretation, but the interpretation that I like, I myself like to believe, obviously, like from my personal point of view, is that this book is this book is actually written in a very simple language. I mean, the language that I'm using right now might be like kind of more complex than the language that is present in the book, and that actually I think says says something. But like, it is written in such a simple way that, like, as you go on reading it, it doesn't feel like a fiction. I mean, it feels like you are reading some kind of memoir or something like that. The language is very very clear, and like it is quite strange because like there are complicated ideas as well, but they are presented in such a precise way by Kafka that like it's quite brilliant, and that's why he's revered in the literature community. But now one of the things that I found very very interesting in this novel, and like the one thing that I like took the most out of the novel is that even after becoming a cockroach, after losing his like human body, like in the first morning, his first thoughts were not like, what am I gonna do? I am a cockroach, like I'm gonna die, if people are gonna kill me. His first thoughts are of going to work. He's worried about going to work, and like even his boss comes to like pick him up, and his boss becomes obviously extremely terrified of him. But like there are like even after turning into a cockroach, that guy uh, uh, tries to spend all of his energy trying to open a door, and there is like surprisingly little emphasis given to the fact that the person is a cockroach. Like even though the entire story is about that, like in the writings, that it isn't heavily emphasized at all. Like in a sense, maybe the writer is trying to say that whatever happens happens, and like really absurd thing happened, but the life is still going on like a normal human life. I mean, completely changed, but the mind inside the organism is still a human mind, and the human mind still strives forward, and it doesn't look sideways or backwards. That's what I think is one of the things that you can take away from the book, and that is obviously one thing, the main thing that I took away from this book personally myself. I mean, uh, life can always like be a box of chocolates if we quote Forrest Gump, and we never know, we will never know which we're gonna get next. Obviously, like we may not become turned into a cockroach, but like though simplicity in which Kafka describes the activities of the cockroach and the attitude of the family members, like it is like quite. I mean, it kind of brings you kind of like hope as well. I mean, not like in a very very positive sense, but I don't know, kind of like a melancholic sense maybe, that there may be hope even though like you get there are like you may face absurd situations, but you still, regardless of your situations, keep going on. Maybe that is one of the philosophies that Franz Kafka is trying to like write about in the book. And the fact that the life goes on, and like towards the end of the book, the emphasis given to the being a cockroach part is much less and less, and the emphasis starts shifting towards the family of Gregor. And in the initial pages, it's all about Gregor's cockroach, his arms and legs, how is he gonna stand up? But like towards the end, it's hardly any cockroach, and it's all about his father is doing this, his mother is like saying that, his sister has grown into a young woman, and they are trying to get her sister married, something like that. The focus completely changes, and towards the end, when his family members leave that house and move towards, I think it was the countryside, and they don't even like talk about the brother too much. The focus is entirely upon the sister, who uh, used to take violin classes, but now is like has grown into a fully formed adult. I mean, and like is very capable of taking responsibilities as well, responsibilities of the family as well, and also personally very mature person she has become. And yes, I think that's all I have to say about this book. And obviously, like I told you how why I what I took away from the book, the idea that absurdity isn't the roadblock that we might think it is. Absurdity, or we can even talk about any type of hindrance. I mean, to quote To quote Dwight Schrute from The Office, will I get over it? No, but life still goes on. So maybe something like that is like what I mainly took away from this. Now, would I recommend this book to others? I think I would definitely recommend reading this book because first of all, it's written in a very simple language, so like there's no problem of not understanding or anything, and like there is no need of like I don't believe that everything should be like explored to the depths, and like if you have to read a book you have to go to the depths and you have to understand the author and everything. I don't believe in such kind of things. So like as a just to enjoy as well, that I think this book is a good one. It's quite short as well. So I think that's it for today. Maybe I might continue making other videos if I read other books. Thank you if you are still here, so that you're quite a beast. Thank you.